Hey traders, TG Watkins here. It is June 14th, Saturday when I'm recording this. Hope you guys are doing well out there. And we certainly have a lot to talk about. So I want to make sure that you guys, if you haven't seen the video that I put out last week, you got to watch it because this is what I was talking about. This was what I was warning about this week is that even from last week, we were starting to see weakness. I was starting to see that things were a little bit overdone to the high side. Of course, there were still stocks that were going to kind of popping, and it made it really challenging to really figure out what was going on because you're looking at some of these stocks and you're like, wow, this is pretty amazing. But underneath the surface, things were starting to get weaker. Okay, and so those were the heads up and warnings that we were seeing. And I put it in last week's video, which you guys can see here if you just go back 6 days, and it's titled Getting That Sinking Feeling for exactly this reason. Now, also what's really crazy with the market is the technicals and the market kind of line up, and it's just waiting for that trigger. Now, the top of the market on this week was CPI, and the reason that it was that is because that was the last bit of good news that could be baked into the cake. CPI beat, same with the PPI. And so now the market's like, great, we got all the good news that we wanted, and now we can sell off. It's basically one of those buy the rumor, sell the news type situations. Now, going into Thursday into Friday, the market had its last little move to the upside. And I was live with my subscribers in the Moxie trading room and telling them, like, look, the market really shouldn't be up here. Everything I'm seeing that says that we should start moving down. We were starting to see some weakness. And even though the SPX was up, I said, hey, this is it. This is the bounce. We should start rolling over. And we had our position set. We had taken off a lot of profits on our long trades. We started loading up on the short side. We did some call credit spreads. And I said, be prepared. I even put out alerts saying raise cash so that when the market starts to move back, you can have dry powder and ammunition to go forward for when the market's ready to reset. And then unfortunately, more escalation from Israel and Iran and that kind of stuff. And overnight, the futures really tanked. I mean, they went down really far. They did bounce, and then I'll get into the SPX and how that thing actually bounced up a little bit and then rolled over so that you hopefully didn't get suckered into that because everything that I teach was working out perfectly. So really, make sure that you guys like the videos, subscribe. That way you can get this because I know a lot of people keep asking like, hey, why don't these videos come out on time and stuff? Like, well, these are free videos, guys, okay? I give it to you for free. If you want the information that I give you at the moment, at the time, and actually lead you into this stuff, you need to come in and join the Moxie room. And that's where you're going to be coming over here, simplertrading.com/Moxie. We have trials for 30 days if you want to come in, see how I do this and how I operate. We have a great crew in there. We have a lot of traders who like to talk and chat, and it's a really great, fun place. So come on over here, simplertrading.com/Moxie, okay? So, and then check out the video. If you guys don't believe me, you can watch the video from last week. We were totally ahead of this and calling this. And part of the reason why I wanted to show this is because we had negative Moxie setups, which warned us days in advance. In fact, warned us over a week in advance. Now, it was a little bit weird because last week, like just a few days ago, the market kept kind of grinding higher, and everyone's like, I don't get it. Why are you short? Why are you concerned? I was like, because these indicators and what I'm seeing should not be this way, okay? This is a trap, and it really was. It was a bull trap, and now you can see that the market's actually starting to roll over. And the VIX, the UVX gave us a perfect signal going into Thursday that the market was ready to come down, and then we could see that it finally actually kicked in. So I want to show you guys what this looks like with breadth, with the put call ratio, because I think between breadth and the put call ratio, that's going to show us kind of when the bottom of this pullback is going to be. Because look, I'm still bullish. I think the market's bullish, but they come in waves, and I think this is a time where we need to have a pullback. Okay, and then I'll show you even the internals. We're giving us some heads up. Then I'm going to show you a couple other things, XLK, XLF, because those were showing us really, really clear that this market didn't want to go higher, and we're showing extreme weakness. So let's dive into this. This is going to be the list I go through. Not too many tickers, well, because the market's coming down. So we're pretty light as far as our swing trading positions. We've got some shorts on, and we're looking for the market to start moving down. So let's dive into the SPX, and really this is the big deal. This is the move. This is the situation that I've been talking about. This is the thing that I put in the last week's video, and I said, this is the problem, is that we've had now price up over the hourly 50 and the Moxie Indicator. Look how many days, like 2 weeks, that the Moxie Indicator was staying below zero, okay? This is the real power and importance of the Moxie Indicator, is because even though price kept inching up, and everyone's like, oh my gosh, I might as well just go longer. This market's never going to pull back. The Moxie Indicator was warning you, and that this should not exist because energy and momentum were negative even though price kept moving up and up and up. And it was right here, it was on CPI day where the market's like, great news, we got cool CPI. Now we can go higher. And it lured in anybody who was late to the party because they saw the CPI read and like, hey, we need to get into this thing. This market is unstoppable. And that was the top of the market. So we started actually getting short. I think Thursday afternoon. Maybe that was TPI after that one. And then, then actually Wednesday. So then Thursday we got this little bounce up here. I told everybody, like, look, this is the last little bounce up. In fact, this was an inverse elf shoe, which is what I call kind of a topping pattern for this. And I said this is where we're going to start rolling over. And you could see, let me really zoom in on this one because you can see on the 15 that even though price was up over the 15, notice how the Moxie indicator was now below zero. That was your trigger. Okay, that was absolutely it. And then we had the huge move overnight based on the war and conflict and all that kind of stuff. It's terrible, but that's what's happening. And amazingly, the market kind of sold off in the morning, but then it bounced. And I hope that didn't lure too many people in. This was just day trading because what happened was there was a huge gap between yesterday's price and then Friday's price, and price was really too far away from the moving average. And so all it did is it came right back up into the underside of a downtrending 15-minute 50 and then rolled over by the end of the day. So this is perfect. This is great. This is what we're expecting. And now you can see that the trend has changed on the hourly chart because now the 8 is below the 21. So I think that we've got some room to go on this. Now, what I do want to show you, let's get into breadth and the put call ratio because I think this will help indicate how far we might have to go. Number one, as far as seeing that this was happening, you can see that this last little move up here where the SPX kept going higher, notice how breadth was not going higher. It wasn't terrible. The number of stocks over the 20-day stayed about 60%. But what you'll notice is it was not going up, even though price of the market was going up. That's a negative divergence, okay? Not good. And then you can see right on cue, I tell you guys this all the time, that when the 50-day SMA, the number of stocks over their 50-day SMA, so 50-day breadth, gets upwards of 80%, the market tends to pull back. And you can see that right here, we had a double top at 80%. And the second 80% was on a weaker 20-day breadth. Okay, this combination was the thing that really kind of triggered it and said, this isn't going to go. And I kept warning everybody in the Moxie room. So we were all over this thing. We were absolutely prepared that the market was going to start pulling back. And it just was looking for a trigger. Unfortunately, it was that trigger for the escalation, but that's what it was. And if we then look at the put call ratio, actually, let me get back to the SPX because where I think, and actually now you can see here, you can see just how that fell off. It went from 60-something% down to 40% very quickly, okay? So I think we are going to need to look, I usually say 30 to 40% for the 20-day breadth in order for that to help find a low. We might need to see 20%. We don't know how bad this thing might get. And again, bad is kind of a relative term because remember, I'm still bullish in this market. I would like to see things get back up. I think the market's actually pretty strong, but it just can't keep going. Okay, we have to pull back, we have to refresh, and this is just one of those things where the market has to refresh. So let's see if this needs to get down into maybe the 20 to 30 range, and then we'll see if that helps point or demonstrate a low in the market. We can also see the put call ratio. And the put call ratio here has been around 0.6. So, very bullish. But again, the market can't stay up forever. It's going to have to come back down. That's what we're starting to see now. And the crazy thing, this is really what's crazy, is that even with the news and even with the market selling off for, that day, Friday, the put call ratio stayed at 0.6. Okay. There is no fear in this market, which, it's going to be that's a problem. So this is going to have to go up before we can actually start seeing a low in the market. And the fact that all of this news, bad news, the market rolling over into Friday, did not spike the put call ratio tells me we've got some more downside to go before we actually put in a low. Okay, so tighten things up, take off some things, cash in your longs, protect some stuff, like whatever you need to do, but make sure you have some dry powder going into the next week or two, because I think the market's going to continue to stay weak and come down. And you just want to make sure that you are well prepared for whenever this is over, and then we can start jumping into the long side. I've also been pointing out that we need to see price on the SPX at least to the daily 21. We could go further. Okay, I'm not really sure where. We're going to have to see how the market wants to do this, but this is just the beginning, guys. Okay, this is just the beginning of whatever this pullback is going to look like. Okay, and then I also want to show you the internals. So this was another thing that was really indicating that the market was starting to get weaker. This top part is order flow. So how many stock or how many people are buying long versus selling short, that kind of thing. And you can see here, very, very strong. And then you can see here, okay, still kind of strong. Okay, and then a little bit less strong, and then a little less strong, and then you can see it really just fell off here, okay? And then the other important thing, and this was happening over days. You can see that multiple days, you can see that order flow was just getting weaker and weaker. And then the other crazy thing is you can see here that even though the SPX was up on Thursday, notice how order flow was not. It was actually negative. It was below zero. So that was another key situation. And then you can come down here. This is the advanced decline. How many stocks are up versus how many stocks are down. Very strong, right? But then it was kept just weaker, weaker, weaker. And then finally here, did see where we gapped down. It kind of recovered, but not very strong. And you could just generally see that there was a trend to the downside like that. Okay, so that was another way that we could see that the market was getting weaker underneath the surface, and basically just to say, look, I can't keep chasing this. And that was definitely the message I was sending to the Moxie subscribers and saying, be careful out there. Now let's look at XLK, because I know a lot of people were looking at the market and saying, we're so close to previous highs. Maybe the SPX and the market's going to have to reach new all-time highs or reach previous highs or something like that before we roll over. Now, notice the SPX, it got close, but it didn't actually reach its previous high. But you can see other things like XLK basically did. So other areas of the market did reach their previous highs. So just because the SPX didn't doesn't mean that other areas wouldn't. And you can see here, it's the same situation. Notice how price was trying to go up here. Notice how the Moxie Indicator just barely got over zero and then rolled over. That's not very strong, okay? It's just not very strong. And even though maybe it was kind of grinding up, this is not very strong for what price was doing. Okay, so we could see that. And then if we look at XLF, this was just in your face weakness. Okay, this was very, very obvious to me and to the Moxie subscribers who I teach and show them every day in the room. Even when I was in Denver this week, I was on the mic and I said, guys, the market shouldn't be doing this. It needs to come back down. Don't believe this. It's covering something. And the next thing we should see is I do not want to start getting long into positions just as the market's going to roll over. Okay. That was my message all week long, including last week's weekend market update video. And you can see here, look at XLF. See how price was over the hourly 50? Notice how the Moxie Indicator perfectly stayed below zero. An absolute warning sign for 2 weeks telling you, be careful, don't get all longed up because this market's about to roll over. And sure enough, you can see starting Thursday and then Friday, this market rolled over and now he's starting to break the daily 21. Okay, so XLF was weaker. It was the one that was giving us a pretty good heads up of what was actually going to be happening sometime this week. And then if we look at the IWM, this is another interesting thing. A little hard to tell on the hourly chart, but look what happened right here. The IWM perfectly came up and hit the daily 200. That is another common thing that I talk about as far as price running into a moving average situation like that. And even though this is where the market's just kind of crazy sometimes, it's like the best before it's the worst, isn't it? Look at the IWM. The IWM, meaning the small caps, risk on, actually went crazy, like boom, huge moves. It exploded for three and a half days. And really ran up. So everyone's like, wow, this is amazing. All these small caps are starting to run. The IWM, look how strong the IWM is. Like, risk on. But that was the last thing. It was such a sucker move. It was trying to lure people in before it actually rolled over. And you can see this was the gap up and then roll over. It was kind of like that blow off top situation, wasn't it? And so this was what I was telling people. Like, don't go long. In fact, I had one subscriber who said, oh, I'm going long right here. I've got a longer dated option, and I think this is a good move. I said, absolutely not. That is the worst place to get in. Please don't enter. Unfortunately, they exited their position basically the same day, and they saved themselves a lot of money because look what this thing did. It lasted for another day, and then it rolled over. Okay, so I help people save money and stay out of bad trades in the Moxie room if you guys are interested. And when you come in, talk to us, okay? If this Moxie subscriber had not told me that they were taking this trade and they were just doing this willy-nilly, then I wouldn't have had the opportunity to tell them my opinion and my read on the market and how this was doing and say, don't do that. Okay. And then, so come on in, say hi, chat, and that's how you guys can figure out, what's going on with the market and how you can take control of your finances like this. Okay. So anyway, IWM, definitely not good. Let it come back down. I don't know how far we're going to pull back, but we're definitely going to pull back. You can look at the Dow. It was similar to the rest of them. They're all kind of doing the same pattern. And you can see here, Moxie Indicator just not weak, or just not strong. It was very weak as price trying to move it up there. And then it finally broke down, and now we're seeing this thing come down. So yeah, everything is starting to do the same thing. Now also, SMH, the semiconductors, okay? I was doing a radio interview with the KE report, and even I was scratching my head this week. I was like, how are these things still going up? Like, what's happening? Nvidia was not moving up. Avgo was not moving up. We were not really seeing strength in the leaders. It was now a rotation that some of the other stocks were starting to come up. And I was like, this doesn't feel right. Okay, I don't know how long this can last, and it just doesn't seem like it should be doing what it's doing. And if you look at SMH, I was like, this doesn't make sense either, because look, price is coming right up into a previous all-time high range. Like, after running this far, there's just no way that this thing is going to keep going. And then as we look at this, you can see that just like the IWM, notice how we had a really big run on the SMH, the semiconductors. And it's like, okay, great. It feels fun. It's really strong. This is pretty wild, having a great time. Now, we basically got into SOXL. So we took a semiconductor trade right there, and we got out right there. So sure, I missed the last couple days, but you know why? Because I could see that this wasn't real. This wasn't a good situation, that this was unlikely to stay up here and to persist. And sure enough, you can see right here at the third ATR where price ran into, perfectly turned around, and you can see that price was just getting too carried away. Look at that gap between price and the moving average. It just was too far away. And I said, this thing can't stay up here. It needs to start coming down. And I was all over this thing in the Moxie room when I was on the mic with you guys Thursday. I said, this should absolutely not be up here. Expect a pullback probably tomorrow, which was Friday. And that's exactly what happened. So pretty wild that this thing has been looking like this. So give it some time. Think about it. If the SMH needs to at least come down to the daily 21, how much more downside do we have? Fair amount, okay? It could even go a little bit lower. So just be prepared. We don't know how far or how long this thing wants to go. So you guys need to raise some cash, protect yourself, be on the defense, and then go from there. All right, now, check out the UVIX. This was another one that was very, very clear, and something we had been talking about for a week or two. It was doing the same thing, but opposite of what the market was doing. Notice how the Moxie Indicator on the hourly chart was above zero, even though price was trending down. This is what I call a trampoline move, okay? It is a very, very bullish setup. And you can see just how strongly this thing was building. I was like, guys, this is a real big problem. At some point, this thing is going to spark and go up, and that's going to really take the market down. And then where you could see exactly where this thing started was Thursday. And again, I was on the microphone with everybody. I think it was Wednesday into Thursday. I said, look at that. That is a bullish entry on the UVIX. And I said, you know what? If the UVIX is about to set up long, which is the VIX, which is volatility, I said, if this thing's about to set up long, that is bad news. Okay? Something's going on, doesn't like it. This is absolutely the signal. And sure enough, you can see what happened Friday. Okay? I even said on Thursday here, you can see that the price and everything got over the 15-minute 50. I was like, this thing is ready to run. All right? So this is ready to run, and the SPX is ready to go down. And that's exactly what happened. So let's see. Now, Tesla. I'm actually amazed that Tesla held up. It actually went up on Friday as it held the hourly 50. Now, on the surface, seems like good relative strength, okay? But it is not yet what I would consider getting in on, because we have price over the 50, great, but the Moxie Indicator is still weak. And given how the market is behaving and all this kind of stuff, I don't really want to be jumping into these things when I do think that the market's going to be pulling back. So I'm going to give Tesla a few days to kind of see how this thing works, because if the market pulls back, maybe Tesla doesn't, collapse, but maybe Tesla's going to be under some pressure, and maybe it could kind of come down like this and just not really do much, okay? I think it could hold up relatively well, so relative strength. But if I can get a better opportunity, or just be patient and let this thing kind of settle in a little bit, and then I can figure out when the market's ready to go, then I can catch this thing on the way up. So I'm not in any hurry to get in this. I'm happy with what I'm seeing, but I don't really want to go chase this thing right here, right now, especially when I think the market's going to be pulling back. So I'm going to give it a little bit of time. I do like Tesla. I do want to be back into Tesla, but I'm going to let it settle down just a little bit longer. Now, Palantir also did not know that the market was pulling back on Friday. It's been doing great. So that's cool. Relative strength, fantastic. But again, I don't really want to be loading up long at the top of a move right as the market starts to weaken, okay? So now Palantir maybe doesn't come down much, but what if Palantir just kind of came down to like 125? Well, that's better than 137. So I want to see if something like that happens. Now is not the time for me to get aggressive on the long side because the market's coming down, but I will pay attention and note for stocks that are actually holding up very, very well while the market is coming down, correcting and pulling back, because I think that shows that they have relative strength. So I'm going to see if I can find some better places to enter on these things and start reaccumulating positions as the market gets weaker, because then I can really see who is strong and who's weak when the market does this. Another one, TEM, having an absolute field day with this thing. We are loving this. We have been all over this. We reloaded up back in through here, I think $61. And this thing also was mostly up on a very down day with the market. So I'm very happy with my position here. I don't want to go chase it. I'm going to wait for a better entry. Maybe that better entry someday will be a pullback to the daily 21. And if that happens, then I got a lot of dry powder that I can add to this. So I really like what's happening. It shows relative strength, and I'll look for a better opportunity to add whenever this market starts to get weak. Okay. So let's see what else we got. Robinhood. We kept taking profits on this one. We were trading ROBN, which is the leverage ETF. Yeah, great trades on this thing. Absolutely great. But look what we have. A fresh Moxie price trigger to the downside. And you can even see price up, Moxie indicator down, negative divergence. This thing is sky high. I just don't want to go chase it, okay? This should most likely come down to the daily 21, maybe a little further, maybe a little less, I don't know, but we're gonna have to see. All I can tell you is I do not want to be chasing this thing to the long side up here, okay? We have been taking profits, raising cash, raising capital, and waiting for better opportunities to come across our plate. And that is really the name of the game right here, is we have to wait for the next cycle to set up. I do not want to be chasing this. In fact, I was taking profits up here, okay? So that's Hood. And then if we can look at NVIDIA, I posted this on X, and look at that. I think it was Wednesday or Thursday, I posted this. It was in the morning. I said, look at that timing. Moxie indicator firing a fresh Moxie price trigger to the downside, basically at the end of last week. And I said, can't be long, can't chase this. And look where it is. It is right here at the previous all-time high area. Not a good place to try to get aggressively long. Okay, that is just not a place, especially after it's run all the way up here. Okay, this has been a heck of a move. Bravo to NVIDIA. Bravo to semiconductors. This is absolutely incredible and shows quite a bit of strength. But do I really want to be chasing this thing up here? And do I really want to be getting aggressively long? Absolutely not. Okay, this is where you take profits. And now we're just going to be patient and wait for this thing to come back down and give us a better entry opportunity at some point. Okay, so that's the name of the game right here, and that's where we are with stuff like this. Even AMD. Look at this one. This was another thing. I showed you guys IWM and how the IWM ran right into the daily 200. Look at AMD. Ran right into the 200. And this is where I kept saying, like, I get it. I know AMD keeps moving up. If you're short-term trading, fantastic. But as far as swing trading and trying to find a really good entry or opportunity, you don't chase this stuff. This was kind of the last breath of all this before it rolled over. And yeah, look at this. Now AMD is back down to the daily 21. Maybe it'll hold, maybe it won't. I would love to see AMD come down a little bit further. Okay, I don't know where, but maybe like 110. That would be awesome. If it did that, it would be a much better place to get into it, and then would give us a much better entry opportunity for the next move. Okay, this is already one move. Now we need to wait for price to come back down, and then we can get the next move. Okay, so don't be too eager and too excited or too antsy to get in on these things. Let the market do its thing. Let the market come back down and provide better opportunities for us. All right, Bitcoin. Now, Bitcoin hasn't quite hit the daily 50. I was kind of talking about that. I thought that maybe this move right here was going to start taking it down to the daily 50. And actually we had a pretty good pop. I didn't chase it though. And this is why, because look, price came right back down. I thought the market was going to pull back. I thought Bitcoin was going to pull back. It did. Now, what I will say is this looks like pretty good relative strength. The fact that Bitcoin is actually up here, it's already kind of doing its pullback. Now, instead of pulling back like this, it's now flagging. So I think Bitcoin is actually going to digest this move, which is fantastic. It shows me that Bitcoin most likely is not going to go much lower, but it's going to fix its overbought condition by time instead of price. I like this. And so I will be keeping a very, very close eye on Bitcoin. And you can see BitX, which is the leverage ETF. And you can see the same thing. Now look at this. This is really important. For those of you who either trade the Moxie Indicator or have been waiting and wondering about the Moxie Indicator, this is another thing that I told to my subscribers this week. I said, do not chase Bitcoin, even though it's up. Do not chase it, because you can see price was over the 50. Notice how the Moxie Indicator was below 0. That's what I call an inverse trampoline move. It is a fake out move to the long side. And I said, don't go long. And sure enough, where is Bitcoin? Right back to where it came from. Okay, so overall, I like this, but again, I don't want to get suckered into something like this. So we're waiting, and we're waiting to see what Bitcoin's going to do over the next few days, couple weeks, however long the market wants to take. Oh, and I put Mar on here. I just want to show Now, some of the Bitcoin miners have actually been pretty strong, I will say. But again, don't want to chase them. This is not the time to go chasing them. And I just wanted to show Mara is still having troubles here at the double top. And you can see it kind of ran up and then pulled back. Eventually, I think this is going to be a good situation. I like the fact that it's holding right in through here, kind of building up some pressure, and probably the next move will be something as it breaks out and up to the upside. So I think these things are really giving us some great opportunities to watch and to build and keep them on our list and say, I think they're going to set up at some point, and when they do, then they're really going to be good opportunities, but not right now. All right, then Reddit. Reddit has also been an absolute beast. This has been great. Now, you guys know I've been looking at it kind of in this box. That wasn't the right box. Apparently wants this box, which is a little bit bigger, and it's moved up. And I first said, yep, there could be a little pullback into the hourly 50. Great. But then when I saw the market starting to get weaker and this was starting to run into resistance, I said, hey, Reddit could probably dip below the hourly 50, which it did. And amazingly, Reddit was up on Friday when the market was down off of this double bottom right here. So again, I think this name has relative strength. Now, I don't know if it's going to come down any further. It might not, but I like what's happening here. This looks very constructive to me. And so even if it comes up and it really just kind of oscillates in here while the market moves down, I think that's going to set up a good move to the upside. So I'm going to be paying very, very close attention to Reddit, and I think you guys should too. All right, so we got that. And then for some special requests out there about gold and GDX, I decided to include this. And part of, I think, what has been keeping the precious metals up is the fact that the dollar has been drifting lower. And you can see here it started to break even lower, which probably helped gold, but also gold is a good flight to safety. And when you got the whole war escalation battle between Israel and Iran, you know, there's just uncertainty. So gold is going to be where money goes. And sure enough, you can see that gold really started to pop up Thursday, Friday as the market started to get weaker. So this is a hedge. This is definitely a flight to safety. And I will say, I was looking gold back here, and I typically say, let's see if we can get a pullback into the weekly 21. You can see it here. You can see it here. At this point, gold has actually been so strong that it did not even dare pull back to the daily or to the weekly 21. It only flagged, not even pulled back. It flagged into the weekly 8. So very strong for now. Okay, very strong for now. And you can see here on the daily chart that this was only a pullback or flag into the daily 21, or sorry, the daily 50, and then here into the daily 21, and then you can see it started to break out. And what you can see here is we got a fresh Moxie price trigger right here. I know it was a little bit messy, but you could actually look at this and say, yeah, that actually ended up being pretty strong. And then again, flight to safety since the market was coming down. And then if we look at GDX, GD actually gave a pretty good clean signal here. So if you're looking for dips to buy, look at this, price below the 50, Moxie indicator above 0. So just opposite of what I showed you guys on BitX with that inverse trampoline move, this is a regular trampoline move. Price should not be below the 50 when the Moxie indicator is above 0. That is a buy the dip situation. And you can see it basically came into the daily 21 and then popped up. So that was a good opportunity right there with GDX. And then I'm sure silver is kind of stealing the headlines as far as the precious metal space. But I want to show you again that there was an entry here. Now, I don't trade silver. It's not really my thing. But what I can do is I can just show you guys what I see. Look at this. Here was another trampoline move. See how price pulled back below the hourly 50? Notice how the Moxie indicator was above 0. Trampoline move. And that was a perfect pullback into the daily 50. So what happened is, here's your Moxie price trigger. You get over the 50, you pull back into the 50, and then you go. And that was a trampoline move on the hourly. So all these things are looking pretty good. Now, silver, maybe it's just a little overbought. You know, it's a little extended up there. So either it's going to continue to hold the hourly 50 and keep ripping, or it's going to need to come down a little bit before going higher. Okay, but clearly this thing is in an uptrend. It is a little bit messy. Silver can be challenging, but it's breaking out from its $30, $31 level, which was, you know, a long time coming. Because you can see that, look at that, now it's definitely on its way again. So try not to chase it, wait for dips, find your opportunity, you know, something like that. But yeah, the precious metal space is going again. And the dollar coming down is also probably helping that, along with the flight to safety, since the market's kind of correcting, pulling back, and we've got some escalation out with those countries. So hope you guys enjoy this, find some useful information with it, and remember, come on over to simplertrading.com/Moxie, because that is where I put all of my information. And anybody who's in the room, you guys can see me live on the mic like this, and we talk about stuff. and we're making these trades and guiding you in the market real time. Okay, so hope you guys are enjoying the freebie stuff on YouTube. And if you want the real stuff, come on over to simplertrading.com/Moxie. Thanks.